And then when I said, what did you do when you got sick? He said, we never got sick. He said, if we ever felt a chill coming on, we would drink milk from the cow.
Hilda is an integrative nutrition certified health coach and world traveler committed to uncovering traditions essential to restoring energy and vitality. She has explored Mongolia, Ethiopia, Ecuador, Kenya, Australia, and Albania, to name a few. She is the host of the popular podcast Wise Traditions with over 16 plus million downloads to date.
The Mongolian people are among the strongest on the planet. They are super resilient mentally and physically. They have been known as conquerors for hundreds of years. Why? I think it's because...
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Beyond the Norms Health and Longevity Podcast. Millions depend on the medical system and at the same time believe that ancestral wisdom is fringe, ineffective, and maybe even unsafe. But you have to ask yourself, why do the ancient health and wellness traditions come back, or actually just stick around, or maybe even outperform traditional medicine? Today's podcast is about how much we have to learn from ancestral wisdom. I met our next guest, Hilda Gore, aka Holistic Hilda, at a VIP lunch at Dave Asprey's biohacking conference. Her energy, enthusiasm for health and ancient traditions was infectious, and I immediately invited her to join us on the podcast. A little bit about Hilda. Hilda is an integrative nutrition certified health coach and world traveler committed to uncovering traditions essential to restoring energy and vitality. She has explored Mongolia, Ethiopia, Ecuador, Kenya, Australia, and Albania, to name a few. She is the host of the popular podcast Wise Traditions with over 16 plus million downloads to date. Her podcast is supported by the Weston A. Price Foundation. She's been to the mountains, the jungles, the tribes, and lived the traditions, and she's coming here to tell you what the healthiest people on the planet really do to live strong, grounded, and sovereign. Buckle up. This is one that's going to challenge what you think you know. Hilda, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, Chris. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah, so I have to share the story about how we had lunch together. You were infectious energy, and I was kind of sharing stuff that I had done, and you said something, and you kind of tried to retract it, but it was very sweet. You said, Chris, how did little old Chris accomplish all of this, right? Because at the time I had interviewed Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, and I'm hoping with this podcast, you know exactly how I accomplished so far what I've done. Now, before we jump into your area of expertise, I like to go back. I like to go much farther back. What was it like growing up little Hilda? Where did you grow up? What were your parents like? And if there was some event or someone you could pinpoint as the reason you would ultimately become a holistic wellness expert and an ancestral wisdom curator and advocate, who or what would that be?
Well, I'm thinking of little 9-year-old me. I was scared, I was skinny, I was insecure, and I went by Hildy, by the way. And I think one reason I was so hesitant about life, Chris, is because I was born with a birth defect. And I don't remember if I got to tell you this at lunch, but basically I almost didn't make it to the planet. This is why I am so keen on staying healthy and strong for as long as possible. I'm all about health span over lifespan, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But let me just say, I spent a lot of my days in and out of the hospital as a kid because I was born with a congenital birth defect, an issue in my heart, a hole between the lower two ventricles. And this means the blood was kind of backwashing, for lack of a better word. And that means it wasn't oxygenating properly. Babies born with this condition are called blue babies, and they often don't live very long. So the doctors were keeping a close eye on me. My parents were too. And for years, I would go in and out of the hospital for catheterizations and x-rays and different procedures until they realized the hole, which was about the size of a dime, wasn't going to close up on its own. So they performed open heart surgery on me when I was 9. And it was after that time when I got this new lease on life, and they were like, you can do whatever you want. I thought, what do I want to do? number one, I want to thank God because I felt like there was a spiritual component to my health being preserved and so forth to the point that it had. But secondly, I was like, I want to stay out of the hospital and I want to help other people do the same. And that kind of set my course.
Now, so where did you grow up, and kind of what influence did your parents have on where you are today, probably?
Great question. So I was raised in Maryland, though my father is from Cuba and my mother is from Mexico. So they are first generation immigrants here. And I think that probably laid the foundation for my curiosity about other cultures, other languages, other ways of living. And when they came to the US, Chris, they left behind some of their traditions. I remember having cereal for breakfast and, we were just kind of managing TV dinners at night because both my parents worked. And so it's not like our culture or my family's roots were being embraced on this particular nation, here in the US. So I definitely got curious about where we came from. But I will say it was very, I guess I would say a divine appointment that I was in the area where I was. Why? Because my open heart surgery was performed at the National Institutes of Health. We could not have had a better system of healthcare for me as a kid. Like it was cutting edge, literally. When they cut me open, one of the best heart surgeons in the US was able to take care of me. I think her name was Helen Tostig or something like that. And so I was scared and nervous. Like I said, as a kid, I didn't know what was going to happen. And even afterwards, having this big scar on my chest affected my self-esteem. But I also knew I had a new lease on life and I wasn't going to waste it.
That's pretty amazing. I have to also imagine, it is so well understood that immigrants who come here work so hard, and you probably have a really good work ethic from the example of your parents.
Well, let me just say, since your show is about longevity, my father is about to turn 94 years old.
Wow.
He doesn't use a wheelchair or a walker. He doesn't live in a nursing home. My father is my health hero. And he doesn't do everything right. Let me just say, he doesn't care about circadian rhythm. He doesn't care if the food is organic or not. He drinks like a fish. Like he's crazy, but he does get some things right that I think are part of the secrets for his longevity. And I can get into that if you want.
Well, I just have to imagine it's the Cuban coffee because it's so delicious. Now, you started off, you had this kind of bad deck. You were dealt this kind of bad deck. At 9, that was just the full cage, open your rib cage, right, to do this heart surgery.
They totally did. They totally did. They also slowed down my body's processes by putting me kind of on ice so that they could sew up the heart and then put it back in me. And I think this is one reason I really like cold plunging and such, because I like that challenge. For some reason, my body has equated the cold with healing. So it's pretty cool. Literally.
Very cool. Now, your podcast is sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation. I wasn't familiar with it. Obviously, doing research, I did. First, how did you get connected with the Weston A. Price Foundation? And then probably kind of fold in, what is it?
Oh, I love this. I have so many stories to tell. So in contrast, probably to some of your other guests, Chris, let me just add a disclaimer here. I'm not going to have a lot of data. I'm not going to bring a lot of scientific rigor to what I'm going to share, because the wisdom I've come across isn't measured by numbers in a lab. It can't be dissected with a microscope. Now, is it backed by modern science? Absolutely, 100%. I like to say that modern science is catching up to ancestral wisdom. But I really have found that people, when they dare to lean in to their deepest knowing, will find that what I have to share resonates. So that's just a little background on all that. So what happened was, it was also, again, divinely orchestrated that I would get involved with the Weston A. Price Foundation. Here's what happened. I was in fine health. After I had that surgery, I was like, okay, I'm going to stay out of hospitals. Like I said, I made like a little vow. I didn't shave my head or anything like that or go join a cult, but I was like, okay, I'm going to become a gym rat. So I just started working out all the time. I became certified by the American Council on Exercise. For decades, I taught exercise classes, and I thought that was the key. Move it or lose it, kind of like language, use it or lose it. If you don't keep moving, motion is lotion, you're going to kind of wither up and die. I still think movement is absolutely foundational. But a friend of mine started telling me, Hilda, what you eat matters too. And I was like, what? And I had reason to listen to her, Chris, because she had chronic fatigue. Doctors couldn't help her. Conventional medicine had no answers. They still don't to this day, I don't believe. And she tried all these different modalities to try to heal herself. And then she found out she had heavy metal toxicity and Lyme's disease and all these things. The only thing that gave her any relief was food. She had come across this group, this small nonprofit called the Weston A. Price Foundation, and they weren't promoting just a certain diet, let's say keto or paleo or pescatarian or anything like that. They were promoting the wisdom of traditional diets around the world, kind of timeless principles of healthy diets. And so my friend started kind of whispering this in my ear saying, Hilda, it matters. And I was like, gosh, maybe it does. And being a Christian, I was also thinking, okay, what God gives us, like the single ingredient natural stuff is the best and all the processed stuff is no good. So I was already interested in that, but I started leaning in. I got involved with the foundation, I would say, I don't know, around 2010, 2011 or so. And then things took off when they were looking for volunteers to go to Kenya. They said, we just need 2 volunteers to go. Why? Because a Maasai warrior contacted them. This is where it starts to get wild. A Maasai warrior contacted them and said, please send someone over. We're all getting sick. His tribe was in Kenya, and he had seen the physical degeneration of his people because they started to adopt this what Dr. Price called the displacing foods of modern commerce. They started to eat more white flour, white sugar, vegetable oils, and canned and processed foods, when their traditional diet was like meat and milk and blood, single ingredient natural foods. And he's like, I could tell my tribe we need to go back, but they're probably not going to listen to me. You know, they say prophet is not welcome in his own hometown. So he contacted the foundation. Yes, the Maasai have cell phones. And they were like, okay, we need 2 volunteers. And I was one of the first to raise my hands. And that's where everything started to shift.
So how does this work, right? So you're connected with the Western, like, are you like just attending some meetings, or, you know, are there like AA meetings? I ate a TV dinner yesterday. You know, I'm recovering from the TV dinner, like literally for the next 6 months. Like, what was your relationship at that time?
That's a great question. So the Weston A. Price Foundation, just to back up a little bit, they were established about 25 years ago, and their goal is to lift up traditional foods like Dr. Price did. And I'll get to his story in a minute too. But basically, I was part of a chapter, which sounds fancier than it is. It's just a group of people in my area who want to eat real food. So I first was part of a chapter, and then I became a chapter leader around 2013. So I think that's how I got privy to kind of this inside information. All members also got a journal. And in the journal, Sally said, we're looking for 2 volunteers. So I was the first to raise my hand, and that's what got me going in that direction. But I should also just segue to say, Dr. Price himself, in whose name the foundation was established, was a dentist researcher in the 1930s. So I said earlier, I don't have all the data, but Dr. Price does, because what he did was he traveled the world for like 10 years, and he visited 14 different people groups around the planet. And he took copious notes on their diet, their lifestyle, all the things. He even sent food to his lab in Ohio for analysis to find out what's in their food. How is it so nutrient rich that their teeth look amazing? They have very few cavities. They don't seem to have the same chronic health conditions we do in the US. So he really was able to compare not just the US versus tribes around the world, but even tribe members who were still sticking to their local organic traditional foods and those who had departed from them. And so you could see the difference. Even if you just got his book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, just to look at the pictures, you would be astounded by the beautiful broad faces, the evident good health that is, you know, exuding from every pore of these indigenous people from Australia to Switzerland to Scotland to Alaska, compared to their relatives and friends who had started to change their diet. They're starting to suffer with cavities, and then the next generation would have a more narrow face structure and have poor posture and poor hearing. And so he documented all of this in his book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. It's so wild.
Very cool. Okay, so you're a leader of a chapter. You're at, maybe you get an email, so somehow you raise your hand. Was that like a meeting, or was that a newsletter that went out and you're like, that's me, I need to go there?
No, Sally just put it in the Wise Traditions Journal. And so
Okay.
I answered. And so it was almost like a want ad. And who's not going to want to do that? Like I was like, oh, I will go. The funny thing is, Chris, she thought Sally, and she's still the president of the foundation to this day. She's the founder and president. She was like, oh, I don't think we'll get much interest. And the office got flooded with people who wanted to go because it was an opportunity to connect with these traditional people. I was like, oh my gosh, I get to follow in the footsteps of Dr. Price, and it was all expenses paid, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'll go, I'll go. And then when people started kind of telling the office, we want to go, I said to Sally, do you want to kind of vet these people and see maybe who the best candidate may be? And she's like, oh no, first come, first served. So that's how I got in. At the time, I had no experience, or I would say very little experience, speaking in front of crowds or whatever, because I went with the intention of talking with this Maasai tribe, really. And through a translator communicating, eat more traditional foods, those that have served you since the beginning of time that you can remember in your people group. I wasn't saying eat the American way. I was saying eat your way, which was such a privilege to bring that information. But I also went to learn, to see what traditions are they still holding on to. I'm telling you, it was really a huge shift in my paradigm of life, because even though I was eating traditional foods, just to connect and sit at the feet of a 100-year-old elder in the tribe, who his name was Ole Sanku. And I was like, I need to ask this man some questions. I hadn't even started the podcast yet for the foundation, but I grabbed my phone, I hit voice memo record, and through a translator, I said, what did you eat as a child? What did you do when you got sick? I just started peppering him with questions. And that was kind of the seed of the beginning of the show.
Man, that's fantastic. So you go there. Did the leader have this understanding that he probably needed to shift off the diet? Was he already there, or he was just like, I have to imagine he was, and then so he was just trying to get some sort of outsider to provide some good opinions? What did that look like?
Yes. So Dixon Olegisa is the man, the warrior who contacted us. And he did have an idea they needed to go back, but he didn't think he had the influence, I guess, even though he was a leader in his community. So he invited me and this other woman from the foundation to come over, like I said, and we got to talk to them. And then I saw literally with my own eyes in Dixon's home, like a woman wearing all the beautiful um, Kenyan traditional robes, and like they have these little capes they put on, colorful beading and all the things. In one hand, she had a chai tea, and then the other a white bread jam sandwich. And I
Oh
was
man,
like, oh my gosh, like they have one foot in their traditional world and one foot in modernity.
in the
So I
grave.
did as best I could to communicate, like eat more your traditional foods. And then by the time I was done, it was just a few days in their community. They had a small church, and the pastor got up in the church and he said, starting today, the women will cook our traditional foods. And I like looked around cringing, thinking they were going to be mad at me. But I found out later that they make their decisions by consensus in the tribe, and that they had discussed it as the elders and they decided to go forward. But it wasn't, how can I put it? It wasn't me. And this is what I love about these wise traditions. They're not Sally's, they're not mine. They really belong to the people. And we're simply helping people remember them or rediscover them. And that's why they resonated so deeply with the community.
Is there any data as they kind of shifted back to more traditional, or even anecdotal? Have you been able to go back and visit and see some of the detrimental impacts kind of alleviated?
100%. So I don't think I say I follow in the footsteps of Dr. Price, but I don't keep all the data records. But I will tell you that I went back the following year, and Dixon's wife, in other words, the man who contacted us, his very wife had quit her little part-time job at some like local school, and she had started growing produce for her family and to sell at market. So there were these small shifts away. Also, when I had been there the year before, we had some kind of celebration in the church, and sodas were passed out liberally. I wasn't seeing any of that anymore. And I did see the Maasai drinking blood. And I'm not saying this is thanks to me, but again, they were starting to go back to, though, their traditions. Like they were drinking blood once we had slaughtered a little goat. And I literally got to sit around a fire with them and chew the fat of the animal they just slaughtered. Like it was mind blowing. So I think they were right in the balance. And maybe what I brought was just enough to nudge them back to where they had come from. So I'm pleased to say, as a matter of fact, I know Dixon's kids also have decided to study agriculture and traditional ways because they want to invite their community back to where they started.
Excellent. Did you drink blood?
No, and you know why? Because I didn't ask. I found out later they've realized Westerners don't always want what they have. I wish I
Ah,
had though,
yeah,
because it's really replete with nutrients,
yeah,
and what they do is they just kind of, slit a little bit of the jugular on the neck of the cattle. They don't always kill the cattle that they get the blood from. They'll take a little blood and then leave it. Like we milk a cow. They kind of
yeah.
do that sort of thing.
Interesting.
I
Okay,
know.
so you visit this Maasai, you get this recording, and then some other opportunity comes up, or you take that recording, you put it online, it gets some following. How does the podcast start, and how do you end up going to the on your next trip?
So I cherished that recording. I still remember this elder, and he's still alive, by the way. And when I saw him, he was over 100. So
Wow.
that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
I know. But when I said to him, "What did you eat as a child?" He said, "Whatever we could catch." The
Mm,
Maasai are herders, so they have their goats and their cattle, but they also are hunters.
mm.
And then when I said, "What did you do when you got sick?" He said, "We never got sick." My jaw touched the floor,
Yeah.
basically. You could have just, shut my mouth. Like I was shocked. He said, if we ever felt a chill coming on, we would drink milk from the cow. And he demonstrated drinking it straight from the udder. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so fabulous. So when I got back, I did tell Sally, you know what? I think you all should have a podcast. And this is before podcasts were big. Serial was like the only one around. This was in 2015 or so. And so I said, you should have a show and let's lift up these ancient voices. And she said, yes. And we've got experts, we've got authors, we've got all kinds of people in the alternative health space that point back to the wisdom of yesteryear for good health today. I was like, perfect. And I also knew that the foundation already had like 12,000 members or something. So I thought, okay, we'll have a built-in audience. So really the show is theirs and I'm just a contractor making it for them. But it's been a really sweet partnership. So at first they sent me other places because I was like, we should go everywhere Dr. Price went. So I went to Peru next. I think that was in 2017. But then after that, they were like, we don't know if we want to keep doing that. But I was like, well, I sure do. So on my own dime and with the help of a few sponsors like Ancestral Supplements, I went to Australia. I went to Ecuador. I decided to go, even beyond where Dr. Price went. He didn't hit much of the East. So I went to Mongolia with Mary Ruddick. Like I just kept going because I thought there are people who are still living on this planet, holding on traditions that we would do well to benefit from. And so this is where I kind of got the idea. I have a course on my website, 6 Ancestral Secrets, because it's more than just food. And these things are all good for health and longevity.
Was it easy to kind of find traditional groups? And, so you're flying into Mongolia. Do you know where you're going? Have you picked up a cell phone and like, hey, I'm on my way to kind of, what does that look like?
Yeah, I have to say that's a great question. And I was like gonna praise you, but then I was like, okay, that's just a filler. But the truth is, that's a great question, and hardly anyone had asked me, like, how does that happen? Do you just say, hey, I'm coming to Mongolia, get me a Kazakh eagle hunter on the phone stat? No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. I often wait. I kind of wait and pause to be invited
Mm,
because some of the indigenous people I've encountered have been mistreated historically, right?
mm,
Or taken off their land or taken advantage of. And I don't want to do that in any way, shape, or form. So I do a mix of putting out feelers, but also waiting to see who welcomes me. And the fact is, with that Mongolian trip, Mary Ruddick had done her homework and she had found some people. She is who I like to call the Sherlock Holmes of nutrition. She's such a fabulous person. And we have the same kind of mission to lift
mhm,
up ancestral wisdom wherever it can be found. So she was the one that set that up. But when I went to Ecuador, a native Ecuadorian said, you know what? I have some Quechua people or Quechua people I can connect you with. I mean, the stories I could tell. I still want to write a book about the different people I've met and the things I've learned. But going to Mongolia, here's something for all the people who are like, I don't like cold plunging. The Mongolian people are among the strongest on the planet. They are super resilient mentally
mm,
and physically. They have been known as conquerors for hundreds of years. Why? I think it's because they live in such a harsh place. It's between Russia and China. It's very sparsely populated. And these people, they're not going to a cold plunge. It's cold enough where they live. And by spending time outside, they're naturally getting their shiver walk on, so to speak. And a friend of mine told me, yeah, 15 minutes of shivering is worth an hour of working out because it depletes glycogen on the muscles, right? But
yep.
these people don't have to do that. Even if you're bundled up, your body's going to work hard to preserve your core and keep it warm, right? So these people are getting the benefit of that. They're also getting movement. They don't have to go to a gym. They're bending down to milk the yak and riding the horse over to the winter home. It always feels like winter over there, but that's another story. I mean, and they've got these 40-pound eagles perching on their arm. Like, these people are ridiculously strong in body and spirit. So I'm just like sitting there meeting them and taking notes and marveling at the beauty. And by the way, for those who are like, okay, well, it's fine to get shivers on and fine to get strength. Again, these are some of my ancestral secrets, but sustenance matters too. What were these people eating? There was never a carrot in sight. It really is all just fat and meat and dairy products, because they have camels, they have yaks, they have goats, but they don't have much vegetation. So they're just making the most of what they have. And yes, while I was there, I did eat horse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Is Mongolia where, so Dave Asprey, kind of his bulletproof coffee kind of has a yak butter tea kind of base. And I don't remember if it was in Mongolia that he was exposed to yak butter or maybe somewhere else. If you don't remember, not a big
Yeah,
deal.
I don't remember either, but he did meet some, herders in some tribe. I think it was it was like in Pakistan or something. Maybe that's what my recollection is, but I could be wrong. It could have been China, but he was definitely over there. And you're right. That's where he got the inspiration for bulletproof coffee.
Yeah, pretty amazing. All
I
right.
know.
So I saw a documentary, and you already mentioned kind of Australia, and this documentary mapped out an Aboriginal tribe as they were starting to consume more westernized food, and that their incidences of disease were climbing. Did you, you went to Australia, maybe you even visited the same Aboriginal tribe. Did you encounter other situations where, I mean, you already start off with the Maasai going, hey, our health is deteriorating. We need some, some guidance. Ironically, we need some external guidance to stop eating the external food. Any other places that you visited that you kind of noticed that detrimental impact of, I think you called it foods of modern consumerism?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. There was a town in Australia called Maningrida. And I would liken it to a reservation where Native Americans have settled or been forced to settle in the US. So I went there with curiosity, because that's what takes me everywhere. And I remember I had to get a special permission to go to this particular town. And they even had parameters of what I could do. And I thought, okay, that's fair and appropriate, given all that the Aboriginal people have been through. It was the most depressing place, Chris, that I have ever been in my entire life, because these vibrant people, described by Dr. Price in his book as with keen eyesight and beautiful colorful murals and artwork and just an amazing physique, like they were the epitome of humanity. And some people say the Aboriginal people are the original people on the planet, right? And to see them reduced to like one grocery store in this town that was right next to the Hasty Tasty, which is exactly as it sounds.
Wow.
I was horrified. I was horrified. And I'll just never forget thinking these people have been taken from their traditions, and they were stuck, instead of fishing, and providing for their people the way they traditionally would, buying things that were in packages. It looked like a military base, what was in that grocery store. I went in there as part of my kind of field work, and I was like, what? Everything was in packages, cans. And this is the one thing. Going back to Dr. Price, I will say that he noted that the healthiest people on the planet had no refined or denatured foods in their diet, meaning there was nothing in packages and cans. It was all fresh, single ingredient food. And once they started to introduce denatured foods, things that have a long shelf life, which means you'll have a short shelf life if you eat them, like a long shelf life shortens yours, is what I'm trying to say. And Dr. Price noted this. And I think it's really important in this time where there is a movement afoot, right, to avoid ultra processed foods. I think it's a valuable place to start, because it was one of the first things Dr. Price noted in all the people groups around the world. But yes, my heart went out to the Australian Indigenous people. And there are a number of tribes, just like in the US, there are many Native American tribes. And I do want to tell one quick other story. So I met Suzanne Thompson of the Inangai tribe. And she taught me something so profound. She said, Hilda, I was going to be a Vidal Sassoon hairstylist until I started paying attention to my dreams. And for the indigenous people in Australia, they value highly their dreams and see them as messages. And she started paying attention, and she felt like her ancestors were calling her to something greater. And she said, and if it wasn't her, it was Eve White from another tribe that I got to talk to. One of them said to me, we have a custom in our tribe that's called Didiri, which means it's a custom of deep listening. And so that means just being still. And in this day and age, Chris, you know as well as I do, we're so busy doing all the time, we forget to be human beings. And I think this is really one of the secrets. We need to be still to know who we are and whose we are and where we're going. If we're the minute we wake up, grabbing our devices, in reactive mode, responding to emails or texts or posts, then we've kind of lost the plot. In the beginning of the day, I like to bookend my day with quiet, and I end it with the same because I need to stay grounded. And this is something that my Australian friends taught me.
Man. All right. So you've traveled to all these places, acquiring knowledge, relearning knowledge, and you've come up with your six, right? Your six secrets. Please walk us through your six secrets.
Thank you for asking. I think these are so valuable. And as I like to say, the best hacks in life are free.
Yep.
So I know there are lots of anti-aging tips out there, from peptides to creatine to nicotine to keep you focused, like all those things. And they're great, don't get me wrong. But I remember talking to Jay Campbell at Hack Your Health, where we were recently.
Yep.
And he said, I'm going to be talking about peptides and peptide stacks on the stage. He said, but if people don't have the basics dialed in, then the peptides aren't going to do them any good. And I thought, this is what I want to share with people. This is what I want to invite them to remember. And the six secrets are super easy to remember because as Holistic Hilda, I love alliteration. The first one literally is about the great multivitamin in the sky. It's about sunlight. I've talked to Dr. Jack Cruz, Thaddeus Owen, Dewey Lehman, Randy Lee, lots of experts in this space, and they have the science to back it up. But I will just tell you that it's really important for us to get more natural light in our lives for good health. We are like little batteries. I think Bruce Lipton told me that. We get energy from the earth and energy from the sun. We need it from both ends. So I start my day with what I like to call sunlight before screen rise or sunrise before screen rise. I get the sun in my eyes before I go to my device. And this is a great habit because I'm getting the spectrum of light that my suprachiasmatic nucleus, my receptor in my brain picks up on. It informs every cell in every part of my body, what time of day it is. It gets all the hormones in motion. It's good for my mood. It's good for my metabolism. It helps my body know when to produce and release melatonin for better sleep. Like, I can't believe what a powerful hack this is, and it's overlooked. So what I do is I get outside within 30 to 45 minutes of sunrise. So right now where I live, sunrise is at 6:55. So I try to get out within 30 minutes of that. I take a walk. I stack my hacks. So I get the sun in and I get shivers in. That's another secret. So it's cold right now where I live in the Northeast. So I will just go out in a t-shirt and shorts. I don't need a cold plunge, though I do like those. But I'll just stay outside, let's say 30 minutes at 30 degrees, and that's the same thing. I mean, my body has to work. The mitochondria need that stimulus to remember to stay strong. Just like our muscles, they can get weak and they can also depopulate. And you need a lot of strong, healthy mitochondria for a long, healthy life. And your telomeres also get lengthened when your mitochondria get stimulated like that. So I get my sunlight, I get my shivers, and my strength. I already mentioned that before with the Mongolian friends, the Kazakh eagle hunters. Unfortunately, most of my day is often spent, with only my fingers getting exercise on my laptop or, that sort of thing. So I am intentional about movement. Like I said, I start my day with walking and I make sure to work out and do some resistance training every day. Of course, you've probably already had Dr. Gabrielle Lyon on your show, but I've interviewed her. I'll put you in touch with her. She's the author of Forever Strong, fabulous work. So those things are critical, but there's more. So sustenance is a fourth secret. What I like to say is what a friend of mine taught me. She says, I'm a qualitarian. Go for quality over quantity. It's more satiating. I used to go in the grocery store as a mom with 4 kids, buying the ramen noodles because it was like 10 for $1. I mean, is it real? Was it really that cheap? I can't believe it. But it was some great deal. I was always loading up the cart with all the things to fill my kid's belly and my own. But I didn't realize that I was doing them a disservice because what's cheap ends up being expensive in the long run. You end up spending more at the doctor's and less on food. I would rather spend more on food and less at the doctor's. So what I do now is I invest in the best food I can, meaning more single ingredient foods. Like I said, Dr. Price noted that the healthiest people had more fat soluble activators in their diet, meaning more foods that carry vitamins A, D, E, and K. So I have plenty of animal products. That's the main place where you get them. So things like butter, cheese, seafood, red meat, and organ meat, especially. So that's maybe 4 or 5 out of 6. The last one might be the best of all, really. And it has to do
Wait,
with
so
what
so we've got sunlight, shivers, strength, sustenance.
okay. Sleep. I forgot sleep. Thank you for
There we go.
mentioning that. Oh, maybe I was sleeping in my conversation.
Well,
I feel like sleep is tied in with sun, but I
yeah.
also am really careful with my light hygiene, which might sound kind of funny, but basically, after sundown, I do what I've seen around the world, from Ethiopia to Mongolia. There's no artificial light after sundown. And unfortunately, the blue light from our screens is stimulating us. It's making us think it's midday instead of midnight. And our body gets the wrong signals. And then, I mean, I always slept like a rock, but it wasn't as restorative as it could have been if I had the right light information. So now, after dark, I put on my blue blockers. You can get them from Raw Optics. I have a friend that has Dream Walkers. I mean, I should even just put mine on right now, because it's good when you're even on your screen. Like, it's just great. And you look like a rock star, so why not?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, so I honor my sleep a lot more than I used to. I used to burn the candle at both ends, meaning I would just stay up super late, get up early because of all my kids. And then later I realized, when I was saying things like, oh, I'll just sleep when I'm dead, I was hastening my own death. So
Yeah.
your life will be shorter if you don't honor sleep. And sleep is like nature's best detox. So now we're on to the last secret. And it's one of my favorites. It's the one I did learn from my friends in Australia. It's the importance of things that really light your spirit. What makes your soul shine? And so I make sure also, I'm a Christian, so I read my Bible every day. I find words that encourage me. I make sure that I pay attention to even what's coming in through my feed on social media, because it's all part of our diet. And I need to be intentional about what lifts me up and not get sucked down into the bog of, kind of a wasted time of speculation and curiosity. I'm aware of all the craziness in our world, but I also want to stay positive and not entertained. And the word of entertainment is really to be held on to. So I use my device, but I don't let it use me. And I do things that make my soul shine. Things like, making music, dancing, walking, reading, things that are positive for my spirit. And this I've seen around the world. And I do want to tell you a quick story from Ecuador. When I went in 2021, it was the year after COVID hit. And even in 2021, I thought I would take people with me on the trip. But they were still afraid of, contagion and all those things. But I was not. So I was like, I'm going to go. I went to Ecuador. I got to be with the Quechua people. I got to be a part of some of their rituals, like El Baño Ritual, which is almost like a baptism or a New Year's Eve thing where you would let go of, any negativity you had from the year and receive the good. Like, I've just gotten to do so many amazing things. But when I was there, they told me, in 2020, a lot of our community members got sick. And one of the women there, Christina, she said to me, we took 20 medicinal plants and herbs to every family in our community that was affected. And she said no one was hospitalized and no one died. So my first thought was, can I see the list of the medicinal plants and herbs? I was very curious. And I never got my hands on it. But this is what I realized later, Chris. What if it wasn't the medicinal plants and herbs that healed those people? What if it was the context in which they were given and received, the context of love and support? Like, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, this is beautiful. And so I think we underestimate the power of community. This is why I sign up for so many conferences, whether I'm speaking or not. I'm like, I want to be with people in real life. This digital world is wonderful, but it's also limited. And we think we're having connection when what we are most longing for is the energy that we get from other people. And this is a true thing. I've interviewed people who've talked about how our energy field extends 6 feet, interestingly enough, from each of us. So we benefit not only from like I said earlier, the earth and the sun, but from one another in incredible and powerful ways.
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS 60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes. Send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code. That'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast.
Well, it sounds like, and I think you mentioned that you've interviewed Bruce Lipton, right? And,
Yes.
and it sounds like, some of what you're talking about is this biology of belief, right?
100%.
I'm re-listening to his book, actually, right now. I think for my bike ride today, I fired that up. So I'm really excited about that. So, right, sunlight, shivers, strength, sustenance, sleep, and spirit. Is there? Let me ask you 2 questions. One, is there anything that people try to fold in? They're like, you have to squeeze into one of those, right? And that you might want to add it if there was an easy way to add an S word related to it?
Yes. And for me, it's soil. And I've thought about that. That's my 7th one. That's my PS to the six
Your bonus.
secrets.
Hey,
That's right.
We've got 6 secrets and a bonus.
And a bonus, because this is the thing. As a health coach, I used to run from, and a gym rat, from teaching my exercise class to going to the grocery store to picking up my kids from school, and I never touched the ground. And I didn't know that touching the ground is like eating blueberries. It's full of antioxidants, and our bodies are carrying a super heavy stress load from the non-native electromagnetic frequencies that we're exposed to. And so what the earth does, and this is why I think sometimes people call it Mother Nature or Pachamama, it takes our heavy load off of us. It takes that positive charge that's weighing us down that can be cancer causing. And it gives us in return a negative charge that is healing. And all you have to do is put your feet on the ground. That's why when I end every podcast of mine, I say, keep your feet on the ground and your face to the sun. It's so important. It's so important. And in the cold months, people always say to me, Hilda, what do you do? I touch trees. I've literally become like a tree hugger because the tree's getting the energy from the earth. I'm like, okay, that's good enough for now, or I'll lean against it, But I do my best to get that energy from the earth. People have no idea. There's so much around us, Chris, that is offering healing. And people say to us, oh, it's too expensive to be healthy, or they think the quick fix, what they pay for, a prescription or a pill, is going to be the solution, but it's not a panacea. Right now, nature all around you is offering so many ways to heal. Let's take her up on that.
It's very cool. If somebody maybe is struggling and they're looking at your list of now 7, where would you have them start? So you do coaching, right? Along these lines of these 6 secrets. Is that correct?
I do, but especially for moms. I'll just tell you, it's on my heart lately because I've seen so many moms who are checked out, either, staring at their phone when they're walking their kid to school. And I'm like, wait, what's happening? And maybe they're, trying to check when the class begins or if they're having the field trip that day. So I'm not trying to judge them all, but I just feel like they're exhausted. Instead of being the mom on the monkey bars, they're the mom on the little bench on the park. I'm like, I want them to be empowered. So my goal is to lift up the moms especially. So I'm actually just about to package these secrets in a new program just for moms. I'm calling it the Mother Code, 6 Habits for Endless Energy, because I've experienced what it's done for me, but I've also seen it all around the world. And I really want this for moms most of all.
Excellent. And we'll give that link before we wrap up this podcast. What if you were to start with one, if you only had one of the 7, where would you start?
Oh my gosh, this is like
I know, it's
Sophie's
like
choice.
choosing
I'm
your favorite baby.
struggling.
It's
I'm
like choosing
struggling to know.
or
It's got to
2.
be a tie. It's got to be a tie.
Okay.
Because sustenance, food really is foundational. And I also know that's hard for moms too. This is one reason I do partner with some supplement companies. BIRTHRIGHT is one of them, because I think if you can't get in the liver and the fish eggs and the dandelion root and some of these things that have been so healing for eons, then like take it in pill form, but make sure not to get synthetic vitamins because those are
Mm,
just cooked up in a lab and our body can't recognize them as food. It's not as bioavailable. It's expensive pee, like some people say.
yeah.
So sustenance is big. Sustenance is really foundational, but the sun is too. Because the sun nourishes us. And I'm pretty sure Dewey Layman on a podcast that I had him on said, we get 1/3 of our energy from food and 2/3 from the sun. Like
Mm.
it's all light information. This is what Jack Kruse says too. So if you think, oh, I don't know, I'll eat a pineapple and I'm north of the equator, you might want to rethink that because this is what Jack Kruse talks about as being a biological or evolutionary mismatch. Your ancestors would not have had a pineapple north of the equator. Does that mean
Mm.
I never eat pineapple? No, actually, because I do like pineapple. But I'm just
You get
saying
a pass. Yeah, you get a
avocado
pass.
too. I mean, because I wonder about this. Honestly, I'll just tell you because my mom's from Mexico, my dad's from Cuba. So I'm like, okay,
Mm.
I like avocados, of course, because those are from warm climes.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure Dr. Price, I was going to say Dr. Price. No, Dr. Jack Kruse would suggest you need to eat food from where you're at because of the light information. So I will
Mm.
have these things here and there, but I try to make the brunt of my diet be local food because, again, the indigenous peoples, the healthiest, were eating local, organic, seasonal, and traditional foods. I remember it as LOST. It's LOST is the acronym, but it really helps you be found, right? Local, organic, seasonal, and traditional foods. But so the reason local matters is because of the light information. Everything you eat gets light information, hopefully. From the produce that's grown in the sunshine to the cattle that are feeding on pasture, it's really important to get the right light information in you. So those go together, sustenance and sun.
I love it. Okay, so a lot of people, when we start thinking about indigenous cultures, maybe it's a preponderance just right now. We'll start thinking about things like ayahuasca. Have you seen some traditional ceremonies that were moving, and anything similar to ayahuasca at any of these places that you visited?
Yes, I have. And I think, quite frankly, Chris, because of my background with faith, with my shaky start, like I said, when I was 9, I made a vow, like, I'm just going to live my healthiest life ever. I don't toy much with those plant medicines
Mm,
personally. I
yeah.
also know it can become a loop where you do ayahuasca once and then you want to do it again and again and again. And I'm like, is that getting you anywhere? So I was actually part of a peyote ceremony in Mexico one time and I was like very conflicted. I was like, oh no, they're passing out what they're saying is plant medicine. Should I partake or not? I just took the like tiniest little nibble because I thought, if God or the spirits are going to talk to me, they can do it without my mind being altered. That's what I figured. But my most moving experience, honestly, has been in the Temazcal. So I've done that in different parts of the world. It is a sweat lodge of
Mm,
sorts. It is more of a Native American practice, actually, but I've done it in Mexico as well. And it is a traditional practice where you get under the most intense heat you've ever been in your life. And what's so beautiful is it, as you're having that physical sensation of like burning ears, you got to put your hair over your ears so you don't, feel like you're catching on fire. You're sweating, you're crying, people are moaning. It's really hard. You're also kind of releasing trauma that your body may be holding on to. And then when you come out, when all the rounds are done, you kind of crawl out, almost looks like an igloo shaped building. So when you crawl out, it's like you're literally being born again. And I found that to be very profound and very healing. And again, that's without any plant medicine. So I think there are experiences that we can have that can help us release the stress, receive what God wants from us without the mind trip and all that stuff. But I'm not trying to hate on that, but I'm just saying it's not my preferred way of healing.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you, right? I think that for some people that is a journey that they want to go on. And I think you also need to be careful. I have heard of people who are like, yeah, I'm going for my 6th ayahuasca journey. It's like, that doesn't sound like it's working for you. Maybe try something else. A sweat lodge might be, and who knows,
Yeah.
don't do ayahuasca in the sweat lodge. Okay. Like you should be clear about that. So
I
you have
love
done
that.
so many interviews. Bruce Lipton, would have to be on a lot of people's radar. That would be a super cool conversation. One, maybe the one that you were kind of most excited about, right? Just to connect, and then one maybe that surprised you.
Yeah. Well, along the lines of Bruce Lipton, I love talking to Peter Crone. I think
Mm.
this part of how we think is underestimated. Peter Crone goes as the mind architect, and he invites people to understand more deeply the stories they tell themselves. It's so beautiful. Definitely, I suggest people follow him on Instagram. And I'm sure he has some work that, again, without plant medicine, can help you identify where am I stuck? Because where you're spiritually or emotionally or mentally stuck, that's going to show up in your body too. So
Mm.
I think it's really important to consider how we think. I'll tell a quick story from when I went to Colombia, South America, just past June. I got to be with some amazing people from the Arhuaco tribe. And again, I was invited to this one. Arhuaco, the Kogi and the Wiwa people were there. And they are so intentional about their thoughts that, Chris, they asked a group of us, there was a small group of us, maybe 12 of us. They said, can we eat at the next meal in silence? Because they were like, when you speak, you eat your words. And what they meant by that was our words have power and are part of our diet too. And I've always been aware of that. I shouldn't say always. In recent years, it struck me more than ever before. Like with my family, we don't talk about bad stuff when we're eating. If there's bad
Mm.
news, we get away from it because you're eating that anger, even as you're speaking it. And these people were so wise about that. I loved it. But so I would say I love the interview with Peter Crone. And then I also loved and was probably surprised by the interview with Tommy John. Do you know Tommy John?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let me just back up and say his father was a professional baseball player in the, let's say, the 50s or 60s or something. And his throwing arm gave out. So he went in for this surgery where they took like a tendon from another part of his body and attached it to his elbow, his throwing arm. And the name of the surgery was so complicated that the doctor started calling it Tommy John surgery. So this is most people's association with Tommy John. But what you might not know is that Tommy John had a son. And he's a chiropractor and he lives in California. So, Tommy John is just one of the most wild and strong people I've ever met in my entire life. What I mean by this is he had his chiropractor, MD certificate and he like burned it, I think in 2020. He was just like, everything is off the, off the chain here. Let's just let everything go. And he started inviting people to stop outsourcing their health. And I really like that because what can happen, the way Tommy John frames it is he says, here's the allopathic model, conventional medicine where you go in for a prescription or a pill or a program with a physician. And then he said naturopathic or the green model is you go into your chiropractor or you go into your, nutritional health therapy practitioner. And the next thing you know, you're getting supplements. It's kind of the same thing. And Tommy just invited us to think outside of all that and empower ourselves. And he says N equals one, which I love, meaning don't just take my word for it. And that's why I want to repeat this. Like, test out everything I've said by yourself. See, what does it feel like when I get the morning sun? Because someone challenged me years ago, just get 2 weeks of that morning sun and see what happens. My husband laughed at me, Chris. He's like, you're a night owl. You're never going to do it. I became an early bird. I can't believe it. In
Wow.
2 weeks, the transformation in my circadian rhythm synced up with nature. I just can't believe it. I never looked back. And this was like 8 years ago now. So I just want to invite people to do what Tommy John does is like, take your health into your own hands, take steps to empower yourself, and see what happens next.
Yeah. Oh, well, fantastic advice. Before we get into our wrap-up questions, did we kind of touch on anything? Is there anything else that you want to share that maybe I missed?
Well, I think I hinted at this when I was talking about the spirit piece of the secrets, but I can't emphasize this more strongly. Make sure that you use technology and that technology doesn't use you. I was walking down the street in my neighborhood recently, and the parents were in the car with this little girl. She couldn't have been more than 3. Both parents were on their phones. And the kid was literally at the window. And maybe she was looking at a bird, but to me, it looked like she was saying, help me. And I felt for her so much, Chris, because we're letting these devices suck us in. And there's a reason people I've met around the world say these things steal your soul. And I
Yeah.
think they might not be wrong.
Yeah, I'm actually leading a longevity fast track right now. It's an 8-week program, and one of the week 2 is sleep because week 1 is mindset, week 2 is sleep. Because I think that's the order of the value, right? If you don't have the right mindset to make changes, then then you're not going to make changes. And then
Yeah.
sleep is so very important. And, one of the things that I've started doing, following my own kind of advice, is I do have to admit, when I go to bed, I have my blue light blocker glasses on, and I do Wordle and connections, and then I take my phone out into the room, into the hall, and it's plugged out in the hall. And, bed is for only four things, and four things only. It is for sleep. It is for intimacy. It is for reading and an actual book, and it is for journaling, because that's part of the program. So, yeah, I am in 100% agreement. I've always had the policy. My kids I have 15-year-old twins. The first hour, by the way, I at some point, even though my parents didn't have devices, I'm sure I was a kid who had his face smeared up against the window out of absolute boredom, trying to what's exciting happening. So I have always had a rule: the first hour in the car is without a device of any kind. So you get to be bored, like you, Hilda, and I were, when we were in the
Yes.
car, driving down the road when we were younger. Freedom from boredom is not a right, right? It's a privilege. So,
And actually, boredom births creativity.
yes,
We are too quick to grab our phones, honestly, adults and kids, all of us. Let's let ourselves be bored and see what bubbles up. I think it's a
yeah,
wonderful, wonderful idea.
absolutely. All right. So here are our wrap up questions. Since we're a longevity podcast, Hilda, do you have a target age that you want to live to?
Oh, good question. Well, my dad is shooting for 140, so I'll go for 140.
140. I love it. And how long do you think humans can live?
Oh, I hadn't thought about that before. 140.
Yep. I love it. You know how few people, I've done, I don't know, 130 plus interviews. There's probably four, maybe five now who have given the same number, which is very interesting, because what that means is a lot of people, although we can live a certain age according to their own belief system, they're not interested. Right? It's kind of interesting. And what are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets, let's call them shortcuts, because everybody likes shortcuts, to longevity and a long health span that you would share?
One is that one that I've experienced with my father, which is curiosity. You've got to
Mm,
cultivate curiosity. When I travel with my dad, and I was recently in Miami with him, you will not believe this, but first of all, he was unstoppable. Every day he's like, let's go to the bookstore. Let's go to this museum. All in one day. Let's go out to eat. And then that night we went clubbing. No joke. We went clubbing. My
awesome.
father's 93. Young girls are asking him to dance because he's just so magnetic. I'm like, why are they? These girls are hotter than I am. And I don't, and much younger than me too. But
Yeah.
anyway, my dad was loving it. But part of what keeps him young is curiosity, playful
Mm.
curiosity. He doesn't stay stuck. He's investigating. He's engaging. He's not on his device, actually. He's out there learning. He's with people. I just love that. So I would say playful curiosity.
Love it. So that's one. Do you have maybe
Yes.
one or two more?
Yes. I would say this goes back to what I was saying about purpose. I mean, about spirit, it's purpose. You need
Mm.
to know what you're about. Like my father is passionate about the language. So he wants to preserve the Spanish language. He's kind of like a language purist and an academician. He's a member of the Royal Academy of the Spanish language. So what happens is, I don't know if you know this, but in other languages, English can creep in. Like
Yep.
in French, they say le weekend instead of le fin de
Yep.
semaine.
Yep.
Same things happens in Spanish. So my father is big on that. So he knows exactly what he's about. He's still writing articles. He's still submitting them to Spanish papers where he's like, hey, we need to, preserve our language. And here's some funny things I saw in an ad. So I would say become aware of what your purpose is. And if you're not sure, stillness is good. That would be a great place to start. Be still so you might actually hear what you're supposed to do. But secondly, you can look back at your life and see what were some highlights in terms of professionally or personally, and you might see a thread of connection. For me, I remember in third grade, I was on the stage in the talent show singing a little song. Years later, I became a worship leader. Years later,
Mm.
I became a podcaster. What does that all have in common? I was communicating. I was in front of groups of people, so you might see a little thread like that that will help you. So I say playful curiosity and purpose. And then a third one, were you going to ask me for a third one?
Yeah. Yeah. It's your choice.
Okay. I think the third one would be the people piece. You've got to stick with people. Do not isolate yourself. As people get older, their world tends to get smaller. They do less and less. A friend of mine said aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. And it would be easier to stay home and watch your favorite TV show or scroll away the evening, but why not go out? Like I said, we give each other energy. Let your world expand instead of contract. So people, purpose, and playful curiosity are what I would recommend for not just a long life, but a healthy life. And really that matters to me more than lifespan, because living is more than just not dying. You know, I feel like some of my biohacker friends, their breakfast is like 60 supplements. And I'm like, are you really living? Like, do you like that? Because I would rather be like my dad, having a big steak or even a little pastry and Cuban coffee. I don't even drink coffee. But that feels like living to me. And I don't want to just not die. I want to live.
No, I love it. Are there maybe one or two things people get absolutely wrong regarding longevity and a long health span?
Well, I think that's one of them, is that they think the idea is just to stay strong and healthy for as long as possible. Do I want that? Yes. But that is a side note to my purpose. Because if I'm living to 140 and I'm strong and healthy and I'm just, buying the latest Ferrari and, taking the next trip for myself and my own ego pleasure, that's unfortunate, because that's not really living either. We were meant to do something bigger than just live for ourselves. So I think that's something that's often overlooked.
Excellent. And Hilda, how can people contact you?
Well, I'm Holistic Hilda all over the place. So Holistic Hilda on Instagram. I've got my holistichilda.com website, and I'm actually giving one of the segments of my course away for free. And like I said, it is going to be directed to moms, but even if you're not a mom, get that sunlight bit of the course, because I bring the science, the stories, and the tips for how to incorporate it. You can also go from being a night owl to an early bird, and it's a great way to live. So Holistic Hilda, and I also am the host and producer, obviously, of the Wise Traditions podcast for the Weston A. Price Foundation.
Excellent. And what in the near future are you excited about?
I'm going to just spill the beans here. I am working on some books, but not just for adults. Because I'm like, okay, we've got Game Changers by Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield's books. Like, there are all these books out there all the time. I'm going to focus on kids and teens, and I'm putting out some books for them to make this content accessible for them.
Excellent. All right. You can find her, Holistic Hilda, on all the socials, the website, holistichilda.com. She's giving away the sunlight version, part of her kind of course. And then, of course, check out the Wise Traditions podcast, over 16 plus million downloads. Hilda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, it's been so much fun. I can't wait to see you again.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.